Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from across the globe. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome you at the PPM Philadelphia Summit, part of Y Summit's PPM World Tour. I would like to recognize the partners of this PPM Philadelphia Summit for making this event possible. Thank you to our strategic partners, Enrich Analytics, Capterio, and Project Widgets, and also our associate partner, Keynote. Our partners are available to you during the networking breaks as well as during the day for a quick conversation in the expo area of the event. Now, if you have any questions for our speakers, please don't hesitate to ask them in the stage chat of the event. Once you've checked out the expo area, be sure to mingle with our networking feature available in the navigation bar on the left. Now, if you're ever unsure as to what's coming up, please take a look at the reception area where you will find the agenda for both days of this exciting event. Now, on behalf of the event organizer, Y Summits, I would also like to especially thank our speakers for being part of this exciting event. And I hope that you, like us, also look forward to over 25 keynote presentations and panel discussions across the next 2 days. Now, without further ado, I would now like to introduce to you Mr. Mithun Mrida, the chairman of the conference. Mithun is a PPM practice manager and enterprise architect based in Paris. Now, he also happens to be an intercultural enthusiast and an international speaker. He helps senior executives to foster strategic alignment, improve project performance, and develop future leaders. He has lived and worked for longer periods of time in 4 countries. Mithun has taught international business and project management at several prestigious European schools. Mithun, the stage is yours. Thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thank you, Thomas, and thanks to Y Summits for organizing this amazing event. So let me welcome every one of you, all the newcomers, newbies, everyone who has never been to a former Y Summits event, and to all the returning participants, all the returning the speakers, panelists who have already been in the previous events and with whom I had the chance to work, collaborate. So welcome everyone. I'm so excited about the next 2 days. So we have a fantastic agenda which has been prepared and fine-tuned by the Y Summits team for the last months. So it has been a lot of work, and I know how difficult it is to get everyone on board. So congratulations to the organizing team, especially to Miro and to Tomasz. What I really like about this agenda is this time it's not just a PPM summit. We have a lot of topics which are all streamlined on the topic of innovation, how we are going to deliver innovation in today's changing scenario. So we have wonderful speakers from very different countries, so also from the East and the West Coast, but lots of people from around the world. And it is my pleasure to join you all the way from Paris. It's sunny outside. It's the first sunny days, and it's wonderful to begin sharing some ideas, learn together, have this conversation on PPM with you at the start of the conference. So let me share my slides. So my topic today is really how PPM has become really an important management discipline today, and how it is driving innovation. My idea for you is really think about what is driving your value proposition today in your organization, and think about how PPM is placed in terms in the whole organization, in between all the moving parts of your organization. So how are you positioned? How well are you perceiving PPM? What is new? What has been working? What is not working? And what do people say about it? And what are you having as an action for the next days, next weeks of your for your organization? So I want you to write in the chat what comes to your mind when you think of innovation. So one word about innovation. Let's see what comes. I'll be having a look at the chat. So I see Rosanne is saying creativity. Yes, absolutely. Exciting. Yes. Innovation is exciting. Yes. Creativity being better. Collaboration, new perspectives. Absolutely. Solving big problems. Absolutely, I agree with all of your responses. We have more responses coming up. So disruption to as is, chance, of course. So again, disruption, openness, a new approach to an old challenge. And thanks for all these responses. I guess I agree with all of your definition. And what really I really like to know about innovation is what innovation means to you. What can you do with innovation? What are the different types of innovation? And there are lots of articles, lots of research existing in the field of innovation. But what really does it mean to you as a part of the PPM in your organization? And what can you do? What can you start thinking differently? What kind of little fragmental or incremental innovation can you come up with in the next time? And there's a lot. And I see curiosity, of course. That's a really interesting point. So now I want you to think back to the time before the corona pandemic. So I want you to think about it. What has changed tremendously in the last year, in the pandemic? What that no one has thought of? And what does it mean for companies? So I want you to reflect for a minute and start typing in the chat. What has changed? And what does it mean for companies? So we have Darshan who is saying that we could adapt, respond, and continue life. It's a growth opportunity. Yes, absolutely. Innovation begins with tolerating dissent, new challenges, long distance collaboration, of course. An example of long distance collaboration is me chairing this conference all the way from Paris. I think this wouldn't have been possible or considered possible 10 years back. So obviously a very new way of solving problems. Anything else? Let's see in the chat. Keep typing all the ideas. So we are here to share, and I really want you to share as much as you can. The more we share, we grow together as a community. And so share your ideas and think about this thing. What happens here stays here. So feel free to share your personal insights. And also, I would like to say that all the speakers in the next 2 days would be speaking on all the brilliant topics. They are not representing the company. They are really representing their personal ideas on the topics, and that's why I want everyone to share as much as you can. So technology adoption, yes, absolutely. So I think we are in a very, very interesting phase in this world with the COVID vaccines being deployed, lots of things. So the vaccines, yeah, I see Darshan is saying that we come up with breathtaking speed, never done for the vaccination, and it has never been done previously at this rate. And absolutely, I agree so much. So lots of help, like countries that have been suffering or having troubles, for example, in India, where there was huge trouble with the oxygen supply, and we see a huge number of people coming up with solutions which you could never imagine before. So I think as a community we can see how much we wish to help each other, and what can be done. Um, so a few objectives that I have just about this keynote, and but in general for this whole 2 days, is like really share insights on how PPM can drive innovation in challenging times, especially in the sector of pharma and biotech. And what are the new approaches to portfolio strategy development? So it just not the development, but you have to go beyond it. Like what new approaches can you develop, and how to really implement and go ahead. Uh, my speech is really an introduction. The real meat in the burger comes in the content that will be delivered by all the speakers in the 2 days. So some things I just wanted to talk about, a few introductory ideas. I wanted to talk to you about some underlying principles and frameworks. What is innovation in the PPM context? Something about stakeholders and strategic decisions. How do you make them? What kind of culture do you need around innovation? And just to conclude with a few tips on these implementations. So if you see about principles, so there are really two big houses. We are seeing it. So you have the classical, or I call them traditional frameworks, more waterfall. You have the PMI framework for project management, but then you have more than PMI. So you have different levels. So you have the PFMP certification for the portfolio management. You have the PGMP certification for people who want to specialize in program management. So there's a whole house of practices, best practices from the PMI on classical waterfall or classical methods or cycle. Then you have a whole set of methods from the UK, which are from the OGC or Cabinet Office, like Prince2, where you can, which is an acronym for projects in a controlled environment. Controlled environment. Then you have MOP, which is management of portfolios. You have MSP, which is managing successful programs. And then you have P3O, which is portfolio programs and project offices, which actually ties up all the different 3 levels of projects, portfolios, and programs. So you have and then you have many other frameworks, which I cannot list here, but I think you all know about them. And then you have a lot of customized frameworks which are already in the different companies. And in terms of agile, so it's more an umbrella term. So what we see in the market, so we have Scrum, Kanban, extreme programming, pair programming, SAFe, which is scaled agile for portfolios. Then you have Nexus, you have Less. So you have so many of these frameworks which are also being deployed, also being used. And what I like is really to reflect what kind of method, what kind of framework do you need in what kind of context. And what I like is this Stacy matrix, which really gives you a few guidelines. Like when you have a technology or method, the how, when that is uncertain, and when your what, which is the goal, the requirements, the product, exactly what you want to achieve. So if that is uncertain, then what is recommended is more design thinking and lean startup. When you are somewhere in between, uncertain, a bit uncertain, and uncertain on both axes, then probably you might go for Scrum and Kanban. And when you have something like you know the product, and you're quite certain about the method and technology, you have done that kind of work in the past. So waterfall and automation are the methods recommended. So I think we are at a time where we have experimented a lot with different methodologies. A lot of portfolios have partially traditional frameworks or waterfall frameworks, and a part in agile. So you have to understand, like, how are they all put together? How can you really have everything working under the same organization? And I think that's a really key. And I see Sylvia says fast decision making for decisions with major impact for the society. Of course, that's something we really need it today. Other things I see is we are having a lot of ambitions in the organizations, and what is complicated in PPM is like dealing with moving targets. Think about that, like a missile, which can be programmed to deal with a moving target. But actually, when you have moving targets for teams where the targets are moving every day, every hour, think about it. How are your processes, your practices, your teams, and your methodology and your framework? How is it helping you to deal with the moving targets? And a lot of the organizations I have served in the past, I see that they never took into this consideration that the target would be moving continuously and consistently, and perhaps that put a lot of stress on the teams, and that's why change was very complicated. Motivation is a major concern, and we are always talking about, do you have intrinsic should you think about intrinsic motivation, or should you think about extrinsic motivation? The thing is, a lot of research and a lot of feedback, a lot of practice, we see one thing, that there might be many kinds of motivation which is documented or which can be heard, talked about, but the only one which really counts for us is the intrinsic motivation. Why? Because even if you can give some extrinsic perks, external motivators to people, it finally has to match with something inside the person. And so the only one that can help us to get things delivered, projects delivered, programs delivered, it's really intrinsic. So you have to go deeper. You have to connect the heart and the mind. It's not just at the level of rational level of thinking that you have to connect. We are all the time dealing with cross-functional teams, people from different practices, people from different departments, and this is the time to think about how can you connect, how can you be inclusive, how can you talk to others, how can you connect at a deeper level, especially with the virtual restrictions from the COVID times. How can you create healthy collaboration across cross-functional teams? So this was always a challenge even before the COVID times, but it will be a challenge because we are, each person, we are very, very different. So if we know how to deal with our dilemmas, how to reconcile them in the decision making and work and deliver together, I think that's the challenge. It's easy said, but it's not that easy to really do it. We are also having a lot of information, so too much information, and we are doing too little decision making at the times. We're trying to navigate, we're trying to do sense making. Out of all the things that we have on the table, we are trying to make sense of everything. And think about all the tools, connected tools, Trello, PPM tools, SharePoint, MS Teams, all that you have, all the information, all the mobile apps, the tablet, the notifications you're receiving through the tablet, through the laptop. So think about all that you're receiving. How much time do you have? Is your information helping you to make a better decision? Do you need all that information for making decisions? So these are kind of dilemmas that we have at the PPM level. There's a lot of obsession with methods. We think about those silver bullets. There's a kind of an illusion that method will solve the tool method, they will solve it. And the focus is a lot of organizations I see that once they decide that they would be implementing agile at the portfolio level, or that they will be implementing a portfolio management office, they're focusing on the method, but you have to think about the human beings, because we behave differently in different contexts. And if you don't take the human aspect into consideration, any method will never deliver what you want to achieve. We have different generations. So we have the X, Y, and Z generations, and they all have a very different worldview, different expectations. They have a different expectations from themselves, and they have different expectations from the organization. So that's also very tricky in a PPM context, when you have project managers and program managers from completely different parts of the world, and who are from different age groups, who grew and who were born in a different period of time, which makes them think about an organization and about their roles in a very different way. Some challenges that I have seen in agile teams. So peak and effect, which is a really teams remember what was at the beginning, at the end, at the peak of the project delivery, and they forget everything else, which is before or after that, and that's a pity. Planning fallacy occurs where they think about delivering the sprints in a very smooth manner. They forget that each sprint could be very complicated very complex within the sprint, and you have to master really the delivery. A lot of anchoring problem occurs. There's a lot of problem around the understanding of the principles, so agile principles. There is a story owner problem, where the problem is of the story owner, not me. And COVID constraints are also adding to it. And on the same lines, some challenges in the international projects. So this is from more the classic waterfall side. So conflict management is a major issue. Decision making, problem solving. You are having language barriers, cultural barriers, protocols which are not described, but they are hidden. People are expected to work in a certain way. So, and motivating people and creating a sense of urgency around the same topics and things is really really challenging. If we see that the PMI Pulse of Profession report, it's updated quite regularly, you can see that really what is contributing to the failure is the change in the priorities, objectives, and a lot of inaccuracy in the estimation. So lots of topics are contributing. So we are in this time that we have to think about how can we go to the next level. We have to think about all our decision making dilemmas, our biases, cognitive biases, which are refraining us from making the right decision. So a lot of things come from having too much info. We are too much of information, or we're not having enough meaning. We are trying to fill up the gaps, or sometimes we are not having enough space or enough memory. So we are kind of generalizing, and sometimes we don't have time. So we assume that we are doing things. So these are really leading to biases at the portfolio level. A lot of times we are overconfident. We are placing too much faith on our knowledge, opinions, and our contribution. And a groupthink is occurring at a lot of phases of project delivery. So something I would invite you to think about is think of the PPM journey as really in a customer perspective. So like, okay, are you aware what your organization needs in terms of PPM? So do you know what are the preferences of your stakeholders and sponsors? Do you know what the teams can contribute? Do you know what processes and tools and templates are already existing and can be used? And what can you order from the market? So what can you borrow and buy from the market? And really, you have to streamline your processes. So you have to master your processes at the initiation of the projects, at the planning level, at the execution level. How do you deliver value? How do you set up controls? How do you get visibility and give visibility? And finally, how do you close initiatives and projects? And how do you deliver the lessons learned? To go to the forward, I think you have to think about all the dysfunctional frameworks that you have today, or all the incomplete transformations that did not deliver the value to you, and all the experimentation with agility, to a real hybrid portfolio, and where you have an embedded business agility. So what kind of what risks are you willing to take, and who are your change agents? How do you go? I would suggest learn by osmosis and play at the right level. Think about the types of innovation. So this is an article from the HBR by Greg Sattel, and really 4 types of innovation. And I think some of you already answered disruptive innovation. So think about all the types of innovation. I would take in whatever works for your organization, for your PPM organization is good, and you know what you need best more than anyone else from outside the organization. Some things to look out about skills. So really curiosity, divergent thinking, empathy, acceptance, and especially knowledge of frameworks. So deep listening. So these are these are the responses I received from a variety of interviews I've done in the past few weeks. I would also talk about mindset maintenance. You should maintain your mindset. You should translate rituals into repeatable actions, and rituals into behavior. Don't think in terms of quick fixes. Do this 5 whys. Go to the root cause. You should have a way of judging your business cases to a more detail, how to evaluate it. You should have several rounds of evaluation for your business cases. Think about packaging the elements in your decision and present it to your stakeholders. Question yourself and launch your ideas in a safe space. So creating this safe space is really important. Think about applying a risk-centric approach to all your actions. So know about if you have a real risk management strategy at your organizational or at your portfolio level, what are your tolerance levels? So think about situational mindset. So I really recommend you this book, which gives you 6 steps. Like, think about whenever a new initiative, is it about inventing? Is it about catalyzing? Is it developing something? Is it performing, protecting, or challenging? So you can use it as a guide in selection, in your portfolio selection. Think about what complexity of your mind you have today in dealing with your change. Are you really working as a socialized mind or a team player? Are you working like a self-authoring mind where you are driving your own agenda? Or are you ready to go to a next level, which is at a meta level, according to this book, Immunity to Change, where you are a meta leader, where you are multi-frame, you are able to move from one frame to another. Think about switching perspectives. Are you pilots in a plane, or are you in the control tower? For me, the PPM organization is more the control tower. You are helping with all the information. Pilots are the project managers, but you need both. You need pilots and you need control tower, and you need checklists at all levels. Few books that I recommend you that you can really get to read. And I would also talk about the levels of trust that you have to develop. So I really recommend you this book, The Decision to Trust by Robert Hurley, where you can really think about what is helping you to make a trusting choice or a distrusting choice. What kind of trust factors are into play in your organization and in your PPM? What kind of situational factors are at play? Think about this triangle, trust triangle: authenticity, logic, and empathy. Think about aligning your interests and security, situational security and predictability, so that you can build trust in your organization. And something I wanted to end up with is really don't forget about the psychological safety for your team. So this is a recent research from the Happiness Report. So think about what kind of support, what kind of protective factors that you have to give to your team, what kind of risk factors are at play in your virtual PPM team right now. So my approach will be really differentiate outcomes from outputs. your project and program outputs are what is the real output, but outcome is actually what kind of capability your organization will gain after your outputs have been delivered from the project. And thinking really in this way of outcome is something the way to go. And with this, I invite you to enjoy this conference, and we'll move to the next speaker. And I'm looking forward to discussing and meeting all of you. And let me go to the backstage for a minute, and I'll come back with the next speaker.